Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 466th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have one of several referrals from Mr. Mark Victor Hansen. This is Dr. Mark Goulston. We recorded this on, Labor Day. And I didn't have the date blocked off on my calendar. You know, I do these interviews on Mondays. And I was kind of bummed. I'm like, man, it's a holiday and hanging out. And I almost rescheduled. And I'm glad I didn't. We talked for well over an hour. And this guy is fascinating. 25-year professor of psychology at UCLA. Counseled suicide patients. Never lost a single patient who was suicidal. Became a negotiator, consultant, working with the FBI and hostage situations. He's an author. And we get into all kind of things that initially you may not think apply, but they apply 100% to what you're working on in business and sales and entrepreneurship, having the right mindset to stick with it. So you are in for a treat. If you need some help kicking things around, you want to brainstorm it, bounce ideas off of someone like little old me, come join our group, 30daysalesgrowth.com. Live, interactive, recorded video calls. Just actually shared a message from yesterday from a member of the group. She had been strung along by some folks for almost a year. So this is September 28th when I got her note. This had been going on since January. She was owed over $10,000. She didn't know the verbiage. She didn't know the approach. And I helped her strategize it, create the messaging, the correspondence, the replies. And today she's getting paid. So $10,000 plus being paid in a timely manner on ongoing work for the consulting that she does. So if there's, and you know what? It was an industry I've never worked in. The reason I can do that is because sales is sales. Humans are humans. What makes us tick is the same regardless of the industry. Okay, so let me help you sell more, faster, at higher margin, with less stress, and even have more fun doing it, all right? 30daysalesgrowth.com. Go join it, and then come back and listen to this interview with Dr. Mark Goulston. Dr. Mark Goulston, all the way from L.A., 25-year professor of psychiatry, and you have promised you're going to help me stop holding myself hostage. Isn't that what you said? But welcome to the show, first of all. How the heck are you?
It's great to be part of the show. We all feel at times like we're being held hostage, meaning, we have some ideas and we have a vision, we have a strategy, and if we're entrepreneurs, and I'll tell you, if you're listening in and you're an entrepreneur and you're going to know what I'm about to say, what holds us hostage it's the bottleneck to success, is as soon as you have to do things through people are messy. And that's the bottleneck, because you can come up with a clear vision, you can come up with a clear strategy, but execution is really the challenge. And that's why a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, are into this artificial intelligence, because, machines don't, they break down, but they're not as messy as people.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an old adage, and it depends on who you are as to who says it, right? Because prospects will say, how you can tell when a salesperson is lying? Their lips are moving. And then salespeople say, how you can tell when a prospect is lying? Their lips are moving. Like, well, you're both saying the same thing about each other. Why are we all lying to each other? Why are we so messy?
Because I think people are afraid. Here's my philosophy in life. I identify, stop, or get away from evil at the earliest opportunity. but most other people are just flawed. I'm flawed, you're flawed. And our fear makes us do stuff that doesn't work out that well sometimes. So that buyer is lying. That seller is lying because they're afraid. And I'll tell you what they're afraid of. In fact, maybe we can get into this because I gave a talk in Moscow to 1,000 CEOs, managers, companies. And I was actually humbled that they had me there. I was there with a Nobel Prize winner named Daniel Kahneman. He wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And a lot of people know what that's about is, how do people think? Do you think quickly or do you think analytically? And what I talked about to the audience is that when you're speaking to people, if you can focus on what people are listening for and deliver it, they will lean towards you. Whereas if you just focus on someone listening to you, they check boxes, you check boxes, and they're hesitant. So I'm gonna demonstrate this on you, Wes. Okay, you game for me to try something?
Bring it on. I can always hit delete.
Ooh, I love that challenge. Oh, I like a good challenge.
Yes, and cut. Okay, yeah, we're back with our show.
To which Wes says, nice try, Doc. Delete. So here's the difference, and I want you to tell me how it feels differently. Okay. So if I focus on you listening to me, what you're listening to me for is, can I give some, bullet points? Can I give some tips? Can I give certain things? And your listeners or viewers, when they see it, they're going to, write down some things. And if some of them are interesting, and if my stories are entertaining, then, you'll try a few of the bullets. You might check my books, whatever. It's a transactional conversation. It doesn't last that much. But if instead of focusing on what you're listening to and my delivering bullets, I focus on what you're listening for, and I get it right, especially since you didn't tell me, you're going to lean in towards me. So here's the drum roll. This is what I think you're listening for, and you tell me, nice try, you missed, Doc. So if I think this is what you're listening for, you're listening for information that is immediately, it's what we call red zone communication. You're listening for information that is immediately relevant to your listeners and viewers. Be they entrepreneurs, be they salespeople. So relevant means this will help me get better measurable results. If I'm a salesperson, this will help me sell more. If I'm an entrepreneur, this will help me sell more and tap into a market. So you're listening for me to be relevant. You're also listening for me to give tips or tools or tactics that can help your listeners and viewers be more effective at making more money or solving problems. And the third thing, this is why we call it red zone, is you're listening for tactics or tools that are doable by your audience immediately, where they don't have to buy a book, where they don't have to buy a course. I have all that stuff. But what you're listening for is to give your audience immediately relevant, effective, and doable information so that they can leave this interview, this podcast, saying, I can use that today. Is that true?
I would say that is 80% of what I'm looking for. The immediate, for sure. People they got to get something. They got to get a small win so they have some success, boost their confidence. Because ultimately what I want, and I tell people this all the time in all my sales training, it's like I will give them tactics and lines and scripts and rebuttals and all this stuff, not to make them a robot of me, but to help them have enough confidence to stay in the game, to make the true, like, long-lasting changes that are required for success in anything. Does that make sense? But like, jiu-jitsu, it's hard. It takes years to master. Becoming a psychiatrist, right? It takes years to master. I mean, and just because you graduate doesn't mean you're necessarily any good, right? There were A students and there were C students. And maybe the C students became very good doctors, but took a while of actually practicing it. So I'm fed up with the instant gratification world, right? But you got to give them some instant gratification tips. So they say, give them what they want, so then you can give them what they need.
That's exactly true. Yeah. You're reminding me of I remember I attended a workshop and the person was talking about leading through change. And he talked about, and he was great. He talked about, well, when you're leading through change, it's important that you have a clear vision, a clear strategy, a clear plan, and all that. And everybody was nodding in the audience. And there was about 80 people in the room. And I raised my hand and I said, I have an observation, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't think, and this really applies to these times now, I don't think the challenge is leading through change. I think the challenge is leading through fear, other people's fear. Because when people are afraid, their minds constrict. It's tough to be curious. It's tough to learn when your mind's afraid. And what I shared with him is I said, I think what I try to do is give people a tactic or tool that is easy to use and is 100% effective. A non-fail tactic or tool that if they use it, they will get results that they've never had before. And it's got to be simple and easy. And then they might be curious to learn more. So can I give away one of those tips that will make anybody who's listening their life better?
Sure.
So there's something in one of my books I have a book called Talking to Crazy, which is how to deal with the people who drive you crazy. It's not about mental illness. It's about the people who drive you crazy in life. And how do you get through to them? And it's called the FUD CRUD technique. And so I'd like you, if you're listening in or watching this, I'd like you to imagine someone in your life who you're getting into a tiff with. It's escalating. They're venting. Your tendency is to say, now calm down and can we deal with this rationally, which only makes it worse because it sounds like you're talking down to them. So here's the FUD CRUD technique. So I'd like you to imagine someone, could be a spouse, could be a teenager, could be someone, in your business. Let them vent. Don't look at them like a deer in the headlights. Let them vent. Let them finish venting. Pause for 2 seconds, which shows them that you actually listened to what they said and considered it as opposed to reacting to it. So they get something off their chest. You pause for 2 seconds, and then you go, which means you considered it. And then you say to them, this is the FUD part of it. You seem frustrated, and I think you're holding back. You're going to go, what? Yeah, you seem frustrated, and I think you're holding back. What do you mean? You seem frustrated, and I think you're holding back because I think you're upset and disappointed too. What? Yeah. I think you're frustrated, upset, and disappointed. Can you fill me in on those? And see, what people will talk about being frustrated because everybody's frustrated. But if you say to someone initially, you're angry, they're going to say, I'm not angry. So it's like the layers of an onion. And so they talk about what they're frustrated about. Whatever it is, you don't take issue with it. You say, give me an example. Give me an example of something I did that frustrated you. And they tell you, you don't get defensive, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them. It's the Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope in Zaire. You're trying to enable them to get stuff off their chest safely. Normally, if they do that, you say, calm down, and that just makes it worse. So you say, give me an example of it. You say, whoa, yeah, I can see how that frustrated you. What were you upset about? What have you been upset about with me? And the upset is the pivot. That's where you get the anger up. And then you ask them, give me an example of that. You go, whoa, yeah, I did that too. And if you watch them, I am telling you, as they calm down. And then you say, what are you disappointed about? And if you follow these steps, when they're talking about what they're disappointed about, you're disappointed in me, disappointed in us, disappointed that we're back in this conversation again. Tell me about that. What you've done is you've enabled them to get things off their chest. And when they're talking to you about what they're disappointed about, again, you say to them, I can understand that too. Let's talk about what we need to do so you don't have to go through that again. So can you picture that in your mind's eye, Wes?
Sure.
And so that's an example of a tactic, a technique. I can't guarantee it's 100% successful, but it is about 95% successful.
Yeah.
And people have said to me, it's magical. I gave it to someone who was the mayor of a city at some big conference because I saw he was having a tiff with his wife. And I said, how's it going? Well, he was one of the speakers. He said, can I share this FUD crud technique with you? And he looked at me and, we were having a conversation. The next day, in the conference, he comes up to me. I said, what's the matter? He said, I used that last night. We had the best conversation we've had in 10 years.
Yep.
So you following me? So hopefully there's some take-home value in that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in sales, you can use a version of this, because if you see someone's pushing back, they're obviously putting you in a category of pushy salesman. And what you can say to them is, can I run something by you? Because it's not going too well. And they're going to say, what? I have a feeling that this conversation has not gone in the direction that I certainly wanted it to go and you wanted it to go. Well, what do you mean? I think something's happened where it's gone sideways. And I think what we're talking about, how we're talking about it, I think there's something about it that's, frustrating to you. What do you mean? Well, it's not a coincidence that when people hear the word salesman, they immediately think that someone's going to take advantage of them. And that's not my intention with you, but I think that's what you're feeling. So can you fill me in where it went sideways? Do you see how that's empathically different than uncover their objections? But again, as Wes is saying, you got to practice these things until it's not just a tactic. It's something where you feel a sense of mastery over yourself, where you're able to have conversations where you talk with people instead of at them.
Yeah. And
it can transform your life.
Oh, totally. But it takes a while. It just does. These guys in jiu-jitsu, right? You fight these more experienced guys and they literally lay down and they're so calm. You're like, I'm a big guy. I'm going to hurt you. Like, no, you're not. Because they have all the moves, right? They have all the defenses. Now, they don't have all the moves in the world, right? But they have all of the counters to a guy at my level. They won't lay down with a peer, right, they're going to be on guard. But it takes so much time to master, and very few people will put in the effort to get to that point. They're looking for the hacks and the shortcuts and, one more funnel. Like, oh, no, we're not going there.
Well, here's something else that, is this okay? Are we having good information? Or are you going to delete what we've said so far?
Oh, no, I love it. And I want to come back to the fun. I'll tell you a funny thing that I use for making outbound calls around that. But
tell me.
But you were thinking of something. I don't want to.
Yeah. So when I was in Russia, the title of my talk was 1116. And the reason it was 1116 is because what you really want to do when you're making presentations is, what's the least that you can say that causes people to say, what's that? Or tell me more. And they'd never heard 1116 because no one had ever come up with it. And so this is what I said to the Russian audience. And I said, this is what, if you're a B2B salesperson, or you have a company that sells products, when you're a salesperson, it's really easy to figure out what your success is. It's your close right. You can see the numbers, but it's a little more complicated for the buyer. And what they're listening for is 1116. And if you're listening to this podcast, you can actually bring this up. If you're in B2B sales and it's going a little bit sideways, you can say, can I make an observation? And they're going to say, what? I think what you're listening for is 1116. They're going to go, what? So you got their attention. You could say, yeah, what you're listening for is, if you say yes to what I'm selling, will you regret it 1 day, 1 week, and 1 month from now? If you say yes, and if you're not and if it's a buyer, you're worried that if you say yes, that your boss is going to say, why did you buy this thing? It's a piece of junk. What were you thinking? We can't use it. You paid too much. So you're listening for, will you regret this 1 day, 1 week, 1 month from now? Also, what you're listening for is, will you regret saying no 1 day, 1 week, 1 month from now? Because if we're having a conversation, it's because you have some sort of a need or a problem that you haven't solved. And if you say no, it means you got to go listen to some other person. see if they have the solution. And another reason you might regret saying no is if your competitor buys what we have and they lap the field. You don't want your boss saying to you, but didn't you meet with so-and-so and you passed on that? Yeah. Well, our competitors said yes to it and they just lapped the field on us. And so this is a way of empathically, it opens people up. And so I did this to the Russian audience, and it was spontaneously translated into Russian. I spoke in English. And I said, now you're probably wondering what 6 is. And they're looking, just like you are, Wes. Hey, Wes, you're saying, Mark, what is the 6 already? Well, here's the 6. What you're listening for is, if I say yes to something that I regret 1 day, 1 week, 1 month from now, 6 months from now, if I say yes to the wrong thing, my boss might say to me, that decision you made wasn't a good one. And I just took a hit from my boss, and I'm going to share the hit that I took from my boss with you because you brought it in. So you're really worried 6 months from now that when it's performance review time, they say, that bonus that you were going to get, sorry. But what you're really hoping for is that 6 months from now, that boss says to you, that thing that you bought for us, it was the best thing we brought into the company. It was a game changer. In fact, my boss gave me the biggest raise and promotion possible. And if you have a good boss, what your boss is going to say, and you're getting one too. And so what I'm suggesting is when you lay this out, it's a different conversation that a buyer, a B2B buyer has ever had with anyone. And then you say, can you help? Can you fill me in on this? Let's reverse engineer it 6 months from now. And your boss says, best thing anyone's bought for the company. Tell me what would make this the best purchase, because it'll make you a star. And also, what is something that could get you into trouble?
Yep.
Because that's the last thing I want to do. And I'll throw you one more other tip, if any of this is of interest to you.
Sure.
So if you're in B2B sales, one of the things you can say to a buyer, and I often tee it up and say, I have a certain observation. Can I share an observation with you? And, people are not going to say no. And you say to that person, you and I have much more in common with each other than either of us have with our CEO. They're going to say, what? You and I have much more in common than our CEO, because our CEO has some sort of, cushion, some parachute. Even if they underperform, they're going to get a bonus. They'll go to some other company. You and I are just trying to make a living. I make a living by selling stuff. You make a living by making good decisions, that make your company more successful and you get credit for. And so we're on the same team. I mean, we have more in common. So how do we do something so it makes us both successful? And what I've suggested to salespeople is, and let me tell you something that's if I'm the salesperson, let me tell you something that's off the table. And the buyer is going to say, what? I will not sell you anything that gets you into trouble or hurts your career or gets you a bad performance review. Closing a sale at your expense like that is off the table. I wouldn't do that to you. I'll go to another company and when this is a better fit. And the point is, if you can say that honestly, not just a tactic, it's one of the ways you build trust in the sales profession, and that's almost unheard of. So I'm done talking, Wes. Is any of this relevant, effective, or even doable?
You're not done talking. This is my show. I'm going to keep asking you questions. So, okay, but on the one hand, I love it, right? I love that whole sequence. On the other hand, it's like, doesn't the prospect feel it already? Like, if I always tell people, prove you're different by being different, right? From the very beginning, act differently, engage differently. If you say you're going to follow up at 10:15 tomorrow, call it 10:15, right? You prove that you're reliable by being reliable. Because it's like the old thing, can I be honest with you? And I'm like, you mean you haven't been until now? So like on the one hand, I love it. On the other hand, might they still see it as a line, as a gambit, as a tactic?
Absolutely. But the point is, you have to decide whether you want to be it.
Oh, for sure.
Because I will tell you something. You can get people to lower their guard and trust you in a profession where there's not much trust. But if you do a bait and ditch, they're going to hate you.
Oh, for sure.
So you don't want to find a way to get people to lower their guard and then take advantage of them. In fact, one of my lesser known books, which I think is a very good book, it's called Real Influence: How to Persuade Without Pushing and Gain Without Giving In. And part of the steps in that book It's called Real Influence. I co-wrote it with a fellow from the Anderson School, John Ullman. Is I think the steps, and my guess is your course covers this stuff because it's not rocket science. The first thing is go for a great outcome for the other person. It's got to be a great outcome. It can't just be, small. It's got to be something that, wow, that'd be great. The second thing is be aware of your own blind spots and correct them. And your own blind spots are you being too pushy? Are you interrupting them? Are you not listening? Be aware of your blind spots, which out of your own anxiety can push people away. The third thing, which we got a lot of interviews for, is learn how to go from your here, YOURHERE, to there, THEIR, THERE. Meaning let go of your agenda and go to where they're at. That'll make them successful, make them happy, make them feel safe. And then the fourth step, and it goes back to what you were saying about the when you make an appointment to get back, the fourth step is after you've given enough, give more. Exceed their expectations. Not only be on time, do something even better. And in fact, think of something that might help them be even more successful that may not even be relevant to whether they buy from you. Because, and it's interesting, I have a podcast called My Wake Up Call. And it's not as many episodes as yours. I only have 135. But I can go back to every one of my guests because my whole focus is how to help them be much more impactful and land in their future. And I have guests like Larry King, David Shulkin. He was the the secretary of the VA. He was a carryover from Obama, and then he got fired by Trump. Ken Blanchard, Gary Ridge from WD-40, and it's Tom Steyer, who ran for president. But the whole focus of the interview is when I find out what's really important to them, if I can see something that will help them be more impactful, I'll switch the interview around and I say, can I make a suggestion? And so that enables me to go back to any of my guests because they felt that I wasn't just trying to, cover bases. It's like, wow, you gave me something that I could actually use. Mm-hmm. So it builds on what you were saying, and it's the fourth step from real influence. After you've done enough, do more.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I tell my clients, give away your best stuff for free up front. Mm-hmm. So kind of similar. And that's even, just in your marketing, right? Just give like great content, great value. And people are like, if I get this for free, man, what do I get if I pay for it? And what they don't realize is what they get is they're buying their own attention. Mm-hmm. When you give something for free, you just don't value it. And so your clients, if you give it free or you undercharge, they don't value it. They won't put as much focus on it. They won't get as good of results, if you charge for it. So good stuff, man. Got a lot of links, got a lot of notes. So on your...
So you're going to delete any stuff? Am I free from delete so far?
Oh, this is all continuous. 92% of my podcasts are completely unedited, and the 7.5% of the remaining 8% are like if there's a technical glitch and I just got to remove a long pause. And there may be one or two out there that I chop something out, but I'm saying maybe. I just play this as is. People get it raw. So on your FUD crud, does crud stand for anything or just the fear?
No, the crud is something that it makes it a little bit memorable. Yeah. Crud is, it's kind of like, I have a book coming out. Maybe we'll do another show because this is sort of my passion project. I have a book coming out in the next couple of months called Why Cope When You Can Heal. Why Cope When You Can Heal. How healthcare heroes of COVID-19 can recover from PTSD. Because one of my books was PTSD for Dummies. I work with veterans. I'm committed to, so our commitment in that book, and I get a little emotional, is we're committed to making sure that healthcare workers do not become the 22 veterans who kill themselves every day.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have seen such horrors, and they go back, they're duty bound. They don't even see their families when they get home from the, they live in the garage. And what's going to happen is they're all running on, you'll understand this, Wes, they're all running on adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
And they know something's messed up inside, but they say, geez, I went 3 days without sleep. I don't know how I did it. Same for veterans. Geez, I don't know how I got through it. And then when the danger goes away, all that stuff you push down threatens to eviscerate you from the inside out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not too many things in life that get better by ignoring them, huh?
Yeah. So part of what we'll be introducing is something called surgical empathy, and I bring that up because I know Chris Voss had never split the difference, and he talks about tactical empathy, and I had an issue with that because you got to realize I'm a suicide specialist. In 25 years, none of my patients killed themselves, and I think my main approach, I was trying to figure out why didn't they. And it's because I was able to get into the dark night of the soul with them and keep them company there. And when someone gets in there and they're not throwing techniques at you that you can't use because you're blocked, you start to cry when you're not in hell alone. And then when you start to cry, you start to relax a little bit and you start to be able to think. That's surgical empathy. That's where I come to the world, is to bring surgical empathy to the world to lessen hurt, pain, fear, and anger. Yeah, I'm happy to increase sales, but at this point in the podcast,
Let me get your take on this. I always say in sales, our job is hurt and then rescue.
Well, I like that. Say more about that.
Because I do want to go back to where did I write my notes? Because you were talking about like we have to figure out like what are we blocking? What the 4 keys? Be aware of your own blind spots, right? So we all have blind spots. So when I say hurt and rescue, so it's a kind of a play on your 1116. Because I always say, look, if a prospect truly understood the ramifications of their current situation, they would have already addressed it. Okay. I don't know, a few years ago, we had our water heater exploded, right? Leaked through the garage, through the wall, into the flooring, blah, 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 all the typical damage you expect, right? So if there was some artificial intelligence, some bot going out, analyzing all the water heater collapses, danger, Will Robinson, you have an 86.2% chance of a water heater rupture in the next 6 months. We'd be like, well, hell, let's fix that thing, right? But we don't. We're just fat, dumb, and happy living in our homes. And so I always say our job as salespeople, make that call, knock on that door, Mr. Schaefer, yeah. This is your home. Yes, it is. This home is, 16 and a half years old. Yeah. Has the water heater ever been replaced? I don't know. We've lived here 10. We've never replaced it then. Look at this study, 86.2%. Oh my gosh, hurt and rescue, right? I'm like, oh man, we could have a flood. Who knows? The gas leaks, we could die, fire. Can you come today? Right? So hurt and rescue. And obviously there's some art and some skill to that, but to bubble up in the prospect, how is this? How do you feel about this? Have you addressed this? Have you thought about this? Who besides you cares? Who besides you would be interested or impacted by this? Boom, boom, boom. And get them, oh my gosh, I am exposed. Don't worry, I'm here. Good thing I called when I did. And then we rescue them. So it's kind of that,
I think that's wonderful.
what you're talking about there, right? Like they're not in hell alone. It's like, oh my, if you don't do something in 6 months and you have a water heater leak and, $15,000 in flooring damage, will you get fired for that? So, but I like the imagery there, because we're not.
I'll tell you what would work with me, because look, I go at this from a slightly different angle, but you and I are in sync. And I think the key is, because one of the things I find with a lot of people, especially men in business, is a lot of men in business are emotionally shy. They're emotionally shy in their life because it feels like it could go out of control. And so they will often come at something and they will feel transactional as opposed to feeling really like you care. And that's a work in progress, because I think, when people actually feel that you care, as opposed to you're trying to convince them about an exposure. Now you got to realize you're talking to a suicide prevention expert with no deaths for 25 years. So I had to create something where they would lean towards me, or else I'd lose them.
Yeah.
So as I replay, I don't know I'm thinking, how would someone approach me where I would lean towards them about a water heater? Now, I don't know how they'd get to me, but if someone were to say to me,
right, that was just an example, but anything, maybe I'm selling you a computer, I'm selling you a CRM to grow your business, so whatever, I've got to bubble up, because if it's a prospecting call, well, so this might be a good point. So on your FUD, right? I teach my clients the fear, frustrated, upset, concerned, and angry.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Goulston, hey, this is a cold call. This is a sales call. Man, I take 20 seconds of your time, tell you why I'm calling, and you decide if we ever speak ever again. And no, I'm busy. Just hang up the phone. Okay, you'll forget that I called. I can call you back in 3 or 4 weeks and keep you in the loop, right? And so you say, all right, you got 20 seconds. So, hopefully I've done a little bit of homework. I'm looking for speakers, authors, coaches, consultants. So whatever my niche is, right? If I'm calling software as a service, I'm going to have a different subset of frustrated, upset, concerned, angry, right? So I know who I'm calling, right? And maybe I get a referral to you, but I can't use their name, but I know your situation. Hey, I'm in this mastermind. He's kind of frustrated. His software, his team is growing, and they're using Google and Outlook and just sticky notes, and they're just frustrated. They're losing leads. Oh, okay. So, hey, I work with authors, speakers, consultants that are growing their business, but they're frustrated with the number of systems that they have to use. They're upset with how much time it takes to copy and paste and duplicative entry, the time and money wasted. They're concerned about, picking the right technology and applying it to grow their team. And some of them are just downright angry that despite all their years in business and focus and energy, things just aren't firing on all cylinders. Doc, I don't suppose any of those are important enough, or impacting your business right now worth discussing, are they?
Okay,
yes, all of them.
I'm going to give you a cute tip, which I hope you'll find cute. And we're on a good roll, so I feel like you're not going to delete it. So I was coaching this sales team, and I said, whoever you're calling, we all get spammed, we get robocalls, we get all this stuff. And so we did a pilot study. I say, everybody is so tense, and if you can make anyone laugh or chuckle, you're in, because nobody laughs anymore. So this was the approach. You call someone in a cold call, and you say, hey, Wes, yeah, Wes, this is Mark. This is Mark returning your call. What's this about? What? Yeah, I'm returning your call. What's this about? They're going to say, what? I said, and so what happens is, and then it comes out that it's a cold call, and you go, oh my God, I can't believe I just did this. And, oh no, I'm the one hitting on you. Oh, I feel like such an idiot. And they're laughing with you because they can relate to feeling like an idiot. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. I thought I was following up on something that you reached out to me. Jeez. Oh. But what happens? You make them laugh. They feel appreciative because they feel so uptight. So anything, and what people would call that in psychology is a pattern interrupt.
Yep.
And anytime you can sort of do that and surprise people, and you get them to chuckle, they're interested.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
And I would say, oh, so you weren't reaching out to me? I mean, oh God, I've been in this business too long. Oh, I'm so embarrassed, Wes. Oh, geez. So what is it you do, Wes? Oh, wow. Oh, well, we work with that sort of stuff, but geez, I thought you were reaching out to me. Oh, God, but you follow me? But there's a whole way in which you break this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In fact, can I share an anecdote that I think you'll like? So in Talking to Crazy, which is how do you disarm people, there was an incident. And people listening in, you have to realize I'm just hardwired to get through to suicidal people and whatever. So one of the most memorable stories in Talking to Crazy is I had one of the worst days of my life, where everything blew up in my face. And I cut off someone in a big pickup truck, and he honks his horn and I wave. Then I cut him off again. So he pulls in front of me and I am having one of the worst days. And I'm just sort of staring into, the cab, and there is his wife is telling him, don't go out there. And I don't even know what I'm doing, Wes. I'm just parked there because of one of those days. So I'm just watching, and his wife is saying, don't go out. And he's saying, I'm not going to put up with this. And then I see he gets out. He's about 6'6", huge. And he comes over to my window and he bangs on the window. And I'm so out of it, I rolled down the window. And he said, you cut me off and blah, 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 and and then he was going to say, I'm going to do such and such and such and such. So here's pattern interrupt on steroids. I looked at him and I said, do you ever have one of those days where everything you do blows up in your face and you're looking for someone to come and put you out of your misery? Are you the guy? He said, what? I said, I don't cut off people. I don't cut off people twice. I've had one of the worst days in my life, and I think I'm looking for someone to put me out of my misery. Are you the guy who's going to do that? And he looks, he said, now calm down. I say, you calm down. You didn't have a day like this. I don't do this. And he said, now calm down, get a hold of yourself. No, this is, yeah, you want to trade days? I need someone to, he said, now please calm down. It's going to be okay. I said, well, yeah, it's easy for you to say. You didn't have this day that I had. And he says, it's going to be okay. And then I see he goes back into his pickup truck and he looks in the rear view mirror and he waves. It's going to be okay. And then he drives off.
That's like the old joke, you pull over, see a guy hitchhiking, in the rain at nights, and you pull over and you let him in. The guy's like, oh my gosh, thank you. I've been out here for hours. Nobody would stop. He's like, how do you know I'm not a serial killer? And the guy's like, what are the odds of 2 serial killers being out on this road right now at this time?
Love that.
Like, oh, I better behave myself.
I think the message to your viewers and listeners is, I'm glad we're having this conversation, Wes. It's I hope there's some ponies, there's a pony in it somewhere, but don't, if you're listening in and you're saying, well, you guys are so experienced, you can pull all these things out, don't beat up on yourself if you're listening in. You'll get the experience. It was really interesting. I had a great interview with a fellow named Jack Cochran, who is the CEO of Kaiser Permanente. And he said, what I say to entrepreneurs, and I could say this to salespeople, he said, the most important thing you can do if you're a salesperson or if you're an entrepreneur, he said, you have to forgive yourself when you're wrong. Because let's face it, the odds are that you're going to get no much more than you get yes from life. The odds are you're going to fail more than you succeed. But if you beat up on yourself mercilessly, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I in this profession? He says, if you beat up on yourself, what's going to happen is you're going to not take risks. You're not going to go out there and risk getting a no. And I thought, what a wonderful observation, that if you want to be successful in life and it doesn't go well, you got to forgive yourself. You can't beat up on yourself, because otherwise you're not going to take the risks necessary to succeed.
Mm-hmm. And it's all a risk. I remember my first job when I was out of the Air Force, I was a stockbroker. And this was 1997, and this mutual fund salesman, comes, the old lunch and learn, right? Brings us lunch, so we'll listen to his pitch on why we should put our clients into his mutual fund. And I remember him talking about, he says, look, people, they want to ask, is this mutual fund risky or that risky? And he said, look, we need to redefine the definition of risk. He says, look, this is with modern mutual funds and everything and the way the economy and the government's set up, it's like, this mutual fund is not going to zero, right? You're not going to put your money in. These are blue chip accounts, blah, 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 professionally managed. Yeah, you may get a loss, but you're not losing everything. But we were still, like, even to this day, maybe there's a little bit of influence all the way from the Great Depression. I remember, I was 24 when my great grandfather died. Right. He was born in late 1890. So he knew the Great Depression very well. And so some of his lessons were taught to me. But he said, so this guy says, we need to redefine risk. The risk is not losing your money. Your risk is outliving your money. Right. So once he redefined, I was like, oh, okay, I can run with that. Because that's so true with anything. Right. You're talking to these people that are suicidal. They have misinterpreted something, right? They've given an erroneous conclusion. They've reached this terrible conclusion about something that probably isn't that terrible, but for them it is. It's like, dude, you're going to get through this, but it's real to us, right? Whatever emotion or feeling we attach to something, it's real to us, right?
So let me throw some things at you, and I think this is the beginning of a relationship we're going to have, Wes, but I could be wrong. Who knows? So here's where surgical empathy works. So with the suicidal patients, they've heard people trying to convince them too often, and I saw multiple attempters. And so the sequence I would go through is I'd say, at its absolute worst, how bad does it get inside there? You say, what? At its absolute worst, how bad does it get inside you? I actually did that with someone who was in the hospital who was throwing out all these psychologists, and they said, you better talk to this guy. And he looked at me when I said, at its worst, how bad does it get in there? He looked at me and he said, you don't want to know. And then I looked right back at him because I knew if I looked away, I was toast. And I said, you're probably right. But if someone other than you doesn't know how bad, it gets inside there, you're going to go off the deep end and go crazy. And I looked at him. This was a different interaction. He looked at me and he said, I'm already there. Pull up a chair. Do you follow me? So there's a way of going in there. So here's what I would say if you're dealing with someone and you try to convince them. So if I was doing the mutual fund thing and they're pushing back, is there risk? Is there such and such? And you can do this if you're listening in, you're a salesperson, this may fit. What I've coached salespeople to say is, and I use this line a lot, can I make an observation? It's a way of saying, I'm going to say something that's going to, and what you might say to someone who's pushing back is, you've been burned before, haven't you? What? Yeah, you've said yes to things and been disappointed. And either disappointed in who you said yes to or disappointed in yourself for saying yes. And you're like all of us, so you don't want to leave them out there hanging alone. You could say, you're like all of us. And I'm guessing that either you've been burned or disappointed enough that some of those things were tough to bounce back from. And I'm guessing there are some things where you said, I can't go through this again. And maybe you're wondering if this is going to be one of those things where you could be disappointed again. And then you just question yourself. You question, what were you thinking? And, and have you ever gone through that? Because I've been there. And is that what's going on? Is that you're not even aware of it, but you're being this is reminiscent of some decisions you've made in your life, just like I have, that went south, way south. And you don't want to repeat it. Is any of that true? And then what happens is, and Wes, that is exactly what's happening. I mean, when you're saying they're asking questions that don't fit. We have a solution, and I know it'll work, and they know it'll work, but something's getting in the way. And what it is they're getting what we call a flashback that they're not even aware of,
right?
Not wanting to go through another decision that comes back and bites them. And again, this is empathic selling. If you can bring that out and say, tell me about that, because I am not here to do a repeat of that. Now, that said, there's risk to everything. But knowing what you've gone through, I am not here to have you go through that again. So let's talk this through.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so much better to do it early. Right? I tell my clients, look, hearing no early is a win. I don't want to do a song and dance and fly out and shave and put on a suit and take you to dinner 2 and 12 and 18 times, only then to have you tell me no. And it's an insurmountable issue that it's not an objection. It's a situation. It's just something, but if you can get that out of the way early, there was an episode of Happy Days, and it was, I keep forgetting to go grab the link, but I'm pretty sure it's season 1, and it was the last episode, somewhere around 11 or the last, somewhere in there. But Richie has this girl come over to study, right? She's beautiful. And they go up to the room, they sit down, and he's just goo-goo gaga. And she looks at him, she says, would you like to kiss me? He's like, yes, So she gives him a kiss. She's like, okay, can we study now? And like, what? She said, look, all the boys I study with, they all think, do I like you enough to give you a kiss? And so they don't really focus. And so their mind is wandering off, basically, right? They're not paying attention. And so she's like, yes, I do like you enough to give you a kiss. So can we now study? And then they had a good study session. But it's like addressing that elephant in the room, right? I said, we can't focus unless we talk about this. So, but why do we not address the elephant in the room? Back to that fear? Well,
I think there's a fear. Actually, I'm going to share an anecdote that I love. I've been fortunate to have 7 mentors. I've been unfortunate they've all passed away. They were older. And one of them was this wonderful person named Walter Dunn. And he was a key executive under, I think, Don or Doug Keogh at Coca-Cola. And Walter got Coca-Cola into the NFL, Major League Baseball, so it's some years ago. And in one of my books, I think Just Listen, there's a chapter called Take It All the Way to No. And he said, he had a saying, he said, unless you get a no, you're giving away too much. And then he gave this example. He said, and it was a great story. He said that he was speaking to one of the big theater chains about bringing Coke into their lobbies. And he was so likable that he was speaking to them, and the head of and the buyer said, Walter, I hate to tell you this, we've decided to go with Pepsi. And a lot of people are afraid to say no because they're afraid you'll get upset, you'll get hurt. It's, as tough as it is to hear no, it's often very awkward to say no because people project you're going to get all upset. But this is what Walter said without missing a beat. He said, what question did I fail to ask? What problem did we fail to bring out that if we could have solved it, that no would have been different? And the guy said, well, what you didn't bring up and you didn't know is we're redesigning all of our lobbies, and Pepsi said they'll underwrite it. And Walter said, Coke can do that. And the guy said, yeah, good, we'll go with Coke. So his idea is when you get a no, there's a great opportunity to say, unless you were just meeting with me, because you were polite and whatever, what didn't we talk about? What problem didn't we service? What solution that you're looking for didn't come out that if we had spoken about it and we could address it, that, your no, would have been another answer. But I thought that was just a lovely way to deal with no's, because he says, when you can handle a no with such poise and grace, the other person respects you. They want your esteem because they know if they were you, they would have gotten bent out of shape. And the fact that you, without missing a beat, you're just so calm and gracious, they can't believe you're handling the no so in such a classy way that they now want your approval because you're a classy person.
Interesting.
Isn't that a good story?
I thought you were going with this, and it's similar yet different. Way back episode 78, I had Andrea Waltz on, and she and her husband wrote a book called Go for No. Mm-hmm. And they were both in the eyeglass business. They were one of the lens crafters, one of the big ones.
Oh, yeah.
She told the story from her husband that the manager left lunch or appointment, whatever, came back. He was talking to her husband, said, how'd it go? She said, good. I made a sale. And he was like, okay, did you sell them, sunglasses to go with it and cases to go with it and extended care and contact lenses? And he was like, no. And basically was saying, kind of like McDonald's, would you like to supersize that? Would you like an apple pie with that? Would you like a salad with that? Go for no. If they're saying yes, then ask them to buy the next thing until they finally say no. And then you've reached the true limit of their capacity or desire to buy. But at least you didn't leave anything hanging, because people think, I don't want to be pushy. And I understand that. I don't want to be pushy either, but I don't want to leave money on the table. And also, if I get home, I bought a new ceiling fan, but it doesn't have light bulbs. Not only will I be disappointed, I'll be pissed off that you didn't say, Wes, would you like some light bulbs with that? Does it come with it? No, sir, it does not come with it. Well, we had these nice light bulbs, right? So go for no. So would you like a floor fan for your garage? Go for no. But people don't do that either. They take the money and run. Why is that?
This is an interesting tangent. There's a guy named I think his name is Chester Harold. I could be wrong, but he's in Canada, and he wrote a book called, it's a great book. It's called Vivid Vision. And what he basically says is that you have to, if you're running a company, you have to paint a vivid vision that everyone can see, because when people can see something really clearly, they'll want to do it. I mean, the JFK speech about we're going to land, someone on the moon and get them safely back. That's a clear vision.
By the end of the decade.
And as you're talking, I hadn't thought about it, so we're kind of brainstorming together. But if you're using the idea about the fan without the light bulbs, maybe, and this probably doesn't fit all sales, but it may fit some sales. I think if you can get people to say, I'd like you to imagine you buying this and it's home, tell me about the room it's going to be in. So if you can get people to start describing a vivid vision of something, now that's not going to work at McDonald's. I'd like you, I'd like you to give me a vivid vision of leaving and saying, oh, I should have gotten a milkshake too. It's not for everything. But I think if you can get people to give you a vivid vision of something, you're able to say, now that you see it, is there anything missing? Oh yeah, I got a fan in my room. It needs light bulbs. Oh, I'm glad. But maybe that might be also something that salespeople and entrepreneurs, can do. Let's have a vivid vision of what this looks like. It's kind of like the article that we didn't even talk about, which I sent you, is, when I often do trainings for professional service providers, accountants, lawyers, financial advisors, the presentation is called, when can you start and how do you like to get paid? And so the article, which people can find, if they go to markgoulston.com, they'll find a lot of this stuff, unless I've worn out my welcome with you and your guests. But it's a vivid vision. So when I speak to consulting firms or lawyers groups, I say, how often does a potential client at the end of your first meeting say, well, when can you start and how do you like to get paid? And they look at me like deers in a headlight. And I said, exactly. It never happens. But that's going on inside their head. If you can have a vivid vision that that's going on inside their head, they're not aware of it. But there is that question, when can you start and how do you like to get paid? And your challenge is to find that in their head somehow and get them to ask it. So let's reverse engineer from that, which never happens. And then we brainstorm. What would cause one of your potential customers, if you're providing a service, to say, when can you start? How do you like to get paid? And that article also talks about the red zone. Well, they would say that if what they hear from you, they say, this is really relevant to my success. This is going to make me close more deals. This is going to make me, grow my business. Oh, this will really work. It'll make me effective. And geez, this is doable. I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it leads into that.
Yeah. That's what I tell my clients. It's like, you're doing it right when the prospect says, okay, how can we start?
Absolutely.
How do we start? It's like, it's not a sale, right? They're asking, how can they start? So you tell them, and ideally, like you've done everything right to begin with. Again, you prove you're different by being different. You're different from the beginning. You're different in how you open the meeting, set an agenda for the meeting, how you conduct yourself. And they're like, it just feels right. And they're ready to start, because that hurt and rescue, and you've done that dance. Because I tell people all the time, my dirty little secret is I hate sales. I don't like the whole tit for tat and alternative choice close and tough negotiation. Like, I just want them to buy from me, and I want them to buy again. I want them to tell their friends and family, I don't want this combative thing. Ha ha, I got them. Like, I don't know.
So something else, because you just triggered something else. I think, look, I guess there'll always be a need for sales, But I think there's a possibility that if marketing is done well, it could eliminate the sales profession, because it would just, if marketing is done so well that you become just order takers, think of the Apple Store.
Sure.
And so the key is, if you're in sales, if you can identify, if you can drill down into LinkedIn, or if you can talk to your company and say, what urgent, unmet need is our product or service a solution? It has to be urgent, has to be unmet and unsolved. So if you can identify and target market whoever has an urgent, critical to their success, unmet need, once you identify them, you can actually have a conversation and say, you know, I've been checking your company. I've been checking what you do. I've been reading what your CEO says. I've been reading such and such. And as I read the tea leaves, I've identified what appears to be an urgent, critical, unmet need that you don't have a solution to.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm off, you know, can you tell me how I'm off? But if in someone's head they say, it's kind of like what you said about the hurt. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So the more you show a little due diligence as opposed to shotgunning something, the more confidence you'll have, because, and you should do this to ask your sales manager, you know, what is an urgent, critical, unmet need that our product or service solves?
Mm-hmm.
Then let's find the people that have that.
Yeah, that reminded me of, I've always said great selling or great marketing makes selling easy, but great selling makes great marketing possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at the core, I always say marketing is just selling in print.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
So you got that. The marketing has to, you got to know those unmet needs. You got to know those, the fears, the uncertainty, the doubt, and the marketing that, you know, they perk up. They you put it in front of them. They recognize, oh, it's speaking to me. You know, that's marketing. That's sales. You know, but at a minimum, even if the argument is that's just marketing, you need the money to pay for it, which means you sold something. So you had some great sales. You were smart with your money. Now you put it into great marketing. Either way, like my old CEO would say, sales is the straw that stirs the drink.
Wes, I love these little Wesisms. These are cool.
Oh, well, we could go forever, but it's Labor Day, and my wife's giving me the nod.
Yeah,
we got a little barbecue, got to fire up, got a little impromptu family gathering. But I have pages of notes, links to all over my Wake Up Call podcast. Man.
So I'm going to leave you with one tip for entrepreneurs, because
okay, sure.
I did this thing where I played Steve Jobs, this coming back from the dead. And so if you're an entrepreneur and you want to think like Elon Musk, and one of the reasons I played Steve Jobs coming back from the dead, did it for about a year, but that was a few years ago, was to tee up, this is the formula if you're an entrepreneur. And if you're a chief marketing officer or marketing, this is the formula that they think. And think of when Steve Jobs would introduce a new product, or think of when Elon Musk talks about a new Tesla. What you want to create in all your marketing materials is whoa, wow, yes. And what that stands for is whoa, I can't believe what I just saw, heard, or read. So that breaks into people's ADD and distraction. And you know you've created whoa when people say, could you say that again? If you're talking to an audience, someone, you know, elbows the person. What did he say? What did she say? So whoa is I can't believe what I just saw, heard, or read. Wow is that's astonishing, amazing, unbelievable. Is this is too good to not use. I don't know how we're going to use it. Yes, I figured out how to use it. Sold. So part of the consulting, and for years, what we called that was, how do you create gotta have it? Because if someone says, I got to have it, you don't have to sell them. And the secret to creating got to have it is, and just think of, when Elon Musk shows a new Tesla, or when Steve Jobs would show a new thing, you'd go, whoa, wow, yes. There you go. Go out. Go grill up.
Come up with that.
Go grill up something that's bad for your health. Go on.
Hey, you can appreciate this. It's good for my mental health, right? And that's probably more important than my physical health, huh? Because it impacts my physical health.
Well, you do the FUD crud, man. That'll be good for your mental health, because you'll say, "Oh my God, I am telling you, it will change your life."
Very nice. All right. So like I said, I'm linking to all your stuff. I've pulled up links to your books. Just Listen, Discover the Secret to Getting Through to Absolutely Anyone, Talking to Crazy, and coming out in December, right? I was looking it up as you were talking. Why Cope When You Can Heal, How Healthcare Heroes of COVID-19 Can Recover from PTSD. So it looks like they can maybe even pre-order it now. Is that true?
Yeah, no, they can pre-order. Okay. And we're going to have a lot of goodies for the pre-order, tools that they can use, and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, sounds good. So make sure I got a link for that, and I'll include it here in the notes. But I appreciate you coming on. You're in LA, so if you come wine tasting in Temecula, let me know. We'll have you out.
We're absolutely going to do this. And I'm going to start, by the way, in the next few weeks, I'm going to have a weekly LinkedIn live stream show, and you're going to be a regular guest.
Oh, nice. Sounds good.
Sounds good to me, too.
I love it. All right. Dr. Mark Goulston, thanks for coming on the show. It's been great.
This is cool. This is good. Thank you, Wes. Thanks for giving me a long enough leash and not deleting me.
All right. Well, have a great day.
You too, man.
Did you think it was possible to have that much fun on such a serious topic with such an accredited, credentialed individual? It really was fun. So smart. I took so many notes, surgical empathy, and take it all the way to no. And, I brought up the story with Andrea Watts and, go for no, and why we don't delegate, just so many things. The 1116, so appropriate. It's like, I've thought of that, right? But I never quantified it. So much good verbiage in there. What are you disappointed about? Give me an example. What's that? Tell me more. May I make an observation? So that whole talk track, you better get that down, because that's money right there. So check out his books. Just Listen, Discover the Secret to Getting Through to Absolutely Anyone, Talking to Crazy. Just check out his blog. Just so much good content. I'm so happy that we are close. I will certainly be meeting him soon and doing more work with him. So got some good, 2 more great episodes coming up. William Moore, Mitzi Perdue, just interviewed her yesterday. She'll be going live here in a couple of weeks. Just killer people coming from Mark Victor Hansen. So no surprise there. But like I said before, come hang out, come grow in the 30-Day Sales Growth Group. Live weekly calls, super affordable. And you'll know you're not alone, okay? I'll help you make more money. Thanks for listening. I'll go sell something.